Although most of the summer months off from school were spent playing outside, a large portion was spent with my grandparents. There the playing would continue, albeit in a different setting. One of the most enjoyable activities would not be playing, but from grocery shopping, or as my grandparents referred to it, going to trade. This adventure would begin in the early hours of the morning, with my grandmother waking me up at 6. We would then depart shortly afterwards on a 30-minute drive across the mountain to the nearest grocery store. The first few years of me accompanying them to the store would be Piggly Wiggly, but would later be taken over by Food City. One of my duties for these trips would be to assist in loading and unloading the empty 12-ounce glass bottles of Pepsi and Mountain Dew. These were returned for a few cent deposit or refund and went toward obtaining new drinks. This practice must have gone away with time in my state since it is no longer available, or perhaps it was a store policy. After we entered the store, the three of us took our places for the duration of our visit. My grandfather would dispense a few quarters to me and then sit at the front and read the newspaper, often chatting with the 1 or 2 employees working this early. My grandmother would begin on the right side and slowly proceed through each aisle, filling the cart with whatever was needed. I was on a timer from the time she began shopping and would need to be diligent for it to work in my favor. The first stop would be at whatever arcade machine they had that month. Sometimes the quarters would last longer, sometimes not, depending on the game and my familiarity with it. This task of fun completed, I would then begin the search for my grandmother. This was merely a location and time assessment, as I knew where the most important aisles to me were located. Satisfied that I had more time to peruse, I would then make my way to the toy and comic section. Located on a spinning rack, the toys were cheap, as expected from a grocery store, but captivating nonetheless. A rocket that, when filled with water and pumped full of air, would explode into the sky. This would last 2 full launches before landing on the concrete walkway would make a crack for the air to escape, preventing future launches. A plastic gun that fired multicolored discs from a built-in clip. These fired fast and straight and eliminated the need for any pretend hits. The toy was not without its flaws as well. Upon each use, fewer discs were able to be recovered. Inevitably, all the discs would be lost, only showing up here and there during cleaning sessions where they lie hidden behind furniture. The comics provided sustained entertainment and were a pathway to superheroes when cartoons were not available. These were also cheap in those days, ranging from 25 to 75 cents. I could often leave the store with 2 or 3, depending on what I was able to find. A large portion of the comics I got then made up some of my collection today. The only downside to getting comics this way was that they were subscription-based like the magazines. Periodically, these were changed, and new titles would replace the current ones being sold. This was both good and bad, as it kept things fresh but could prevent closure. Nothing was more aggravating than being into a 6-issue arc and finding a switch would prevent you from finishing the story. Still, I was lucky to have access to Hulk and Spider-Man, 2 of my favorites. The Fantastic Four and X-Men would only be available to me through certain series, like Secret Wars. I would get up to date with the Four some years later through flea market finds and legitimate comic stores. After making my selections for toys and comics, I would then run down my grandmother just as she turned into the cereal aisle. Here I was allowed to make my selection for the cereal brand I would be eating the next week or so. This was based, like most of my other food selections, on the toy prize offered on the side of the container. I always based this on the item and the fact that I would indeed eat the cereal. Generally, I didn't really have the need to ask for certain items. My grandparents kept their home stocked with all sorts of snacks a kid would appreciate. Doritos and Tang were always available, along with small snack packs of cheese and crackers and that little red plastic stick. Flavored popsicles helped combat the summer heat along with small water bottles obtained from a railroad worker. Popping the foil top of those provided a quick, refreshing drink and an empty container for rocks, or whatever bug I sought to capture. After completing her rounds through the aisles, my grandmother would take the cart to an open register. My grandfather would fold his newspaper and head to the register as me and my grandmother went to the car. He would return and pull the car in front of the store, triggering a bell. Then a bagger would load the car, and we would be on our way home. After assisting with carrying groceries into the house, my summer days would continue until the next shopping adventure.